Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 11 must-start and must-sit quarterbacks and tight ends. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Today's video is brought to you guys by DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll be talking about them a little bit later. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 11 must start and must sit quarterbacks and tight ends. We begin with the must-start quarterback and tight ends, headlined by Daniel Jones of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Detroit Lions at home in MetLife this week. Last week, up against the Houston Texans in week number 10, Daniel Jones finished the week as the QB number 13, having 13 completions on 17 attempts for 197 yards and not one but two touchdowns, also having 5 rushes for 24 yards. Honestly, I was pretty shocked when watching the game that we didn't see Daniel Jones try to rush the ball more up against one of the worst run defenses in all of the NFL, but ultimately Saquon Barkley had a huge rushing game, so I guess that could be excused a little bit. This week, up against the Detroit Lions, who rank 25th in pass DVOA, 24th in rush DVOA, this should be a smash spot for Daniel Jones. His floor is probably quarterback 13, 14, like he was quarterback 13 last week against Houston. I would be shocked if he finished worse than that. And his ceiling is honestly top 5 because of how bad the Lions defense is, and especially if this game becomes a shootout, because we all know that the Lions offense has that dog in them. The Lions offense has that crazy game where they could pop off, score a shit ton of points, causing the Giants to have to not let up on the gas, have to throw the ball deep into the game, which could lead to Daniel Jones putting up one of the best quarterback performances on the week. He is both incredibly safe as well as having a huge upside in this spot. So I love Daniel Jones. He is my number 1 must-start quarterback. My number 2 must-start quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy Guap, Jimmy G-Spot, Jimmy Pornstar of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Week 10 up against the LA Chargers. He was the quarterback number 18, having 19 completions on 28 attempts for 240 yards, 5 rushes for 3 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Now, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo not throwing a single touchdown in that matchup up against the LA Chargers, to me, was quite surprising. I really thought that Jimmy Garoppolo would be dialed in up against the LA Chargers defense. That game ended up being way closer than it should have been. This week, though, up against the Cardinals in Mexico City, the Cardinals defense ranks 19th in pass DVOA. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo should have a bounce-back performance here. The Cardinals defense, I know I am using DVOA, but they feel a little bit worse than that in terms of me just watching the game. I really do think Jimmy Garoppolo bounces back here, and I expect him to throw multiple touchdowns in this spot up against the Cardinals, so I think he finishes inside of the top 14 at the quarterback position. Next up, we move to Greg Dulcich of the Denver Broncos, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders at home in Denver. Week 10 at the Tennessee Titans. Greg Dulcich finished the week as the tight end 35.5 PPR, tied with tight ends that you've never even heard of, Bryson Hopkins and Jack Stoll. 1 reception on 4 targets for 11 yards. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, missed him on a deep strike down the field that if he had caught that, then everything would have completely changed. But obviously, Russell Wilson fucking missed him, so he couldn't have caught it. Prior to last week, though, he had 3 straight good games, and I feel as though he is going to bounce back up against a putrid Las Vegas Raiders defense. The Raiders defense ranks 32nd, dead fucking last, DFL in the NFL. This should be a huge performance out of Greg Dulcich, and there's a lot of injuries to these Denver Broncos wide receivers, giving Greg Dulcich an even further bump. Next up, we move to my number 4 must-start player, which is Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears at the Atlanta Falcons. Cole Kmet is currently questionable because of that injury that he suffered in last week's matchup up against the Lions, but I fully expect him to play. Cole Kmet is on an absolute fucking heater. This guy has been on fire over the last couple of weeks. Week 10 up against the Lions, tight end number 1 in half PPR on the week, 4 receptions on 7 targets for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Currently the tight end number 13 in half PPR points per game. Again, despite the fact that he started off this season terrible. He was a unmitigated disaster. I was one of Cole Kmet's biggest fans in the offseason. I was banging the drum for him aggressively on videos, talking about how I love the upside, how I love this situation, because outside of Darnell Mooney, they didn't really have too many targets. It seemed like Cole Kmet was going to be peppered Salt Bay style with some targets. Ultimately, that didn't end up happening, but it has started recently, and Justin Fields has been on an incredible roll as well. Justin Fields has looked great. The Falcons defense ranks 29th in pass DVOA, so I really expect this to be a humongous game out of Cole Kmet as well as Justin Fields, but Justin Fields was too obvious of a start for him to make the cut of today's video. Before we pivot on into the must-sit players, the must-sit quarterbacks and tight ends, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our sponsor. They've been on the screen this whole entire time, DraftKings Sportsbook. If you're a brand new user to DraftKings Sportsbook, you click on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment and bet $5 on any sport pregame money line. You receive $200 in free bets if your bet wins. Now, I know most likely you're a big NFL fan, you're watching a fantasy football video, but in my opinion, you shouldn't bet on the NFL using this offer. You should go to college football, because in the NFL, upsets happen all the time. We saw on Monday night, the Commanders were huge underdogs to the Eagles. The Eagles choked that game away. The Commanders win. So we're going to look towards college football, where there are much bigger favorites. So I'm going to throw it on the screen right now. You're going to navigate at the top left on the website to the college football tab, and then you are going to see a bunch of games on your screen. My two favorite games, we begin with Ohio State minus 6,000 at Maryland. Ohio State money line, bet $5 on that, win $200 in free bets if Ohio State cashes. If you don't like Ohio State, then scroll down a little bit more and you will see Florida State versus Louisiana Lafayette minus 2,400. Make sure you guys check that out. Bet $5 on that, win $200 in free bets if your bet wins. Make sure you click on the link in the video description down below. And if you have any questions about this offer and how it works, either DM me on Twitter at NotoriousFantasy or ask down below in the comment section. I can help you guys out. So now we move to the must-sit category, beginning with Matty Ice Baby. Dun, 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 dun. Matt Ryan of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Last week, up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas, he was the quarterback number 4, 21 completions on 28 attempts for 222 yards and a score, 4 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown. Now, I, for one, was shocked that Matt Ryan even looked that good. I was also shocked that Matt Ryan was the starting quarterback in that game. Jeff Saturday switched everything up. It's like, oh, now the Colts are on this positive push towards greatness. Maybe the Colts can turn it around with Jeff Saturday. Maybe they can, but not this week up against the Eagles. Not this week. The Eagles rank number 1, numero uno in pass defense. This is a huge get-right game for the Eagles and an even bigger letdown spot for the Colts after a heater of a game up against the Raiders. Speaking of the Raiders, we got Derek Carr of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Denver Broncos in Denver. Last week, up against the Colts, he was quarterback number 14, 24 completions on 38 attempts for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Denver defense ranks 3rd in pass DVOA. Derek Carr went on the podium after the game and started crying after the loss to the Colts. He knows that his ass is grass, and they are going to draft a new quarterback over him. Now, I am somewhat of a Derek Carr fan, so I'm not going to sit here and fucking do the take the L Fortnite dance on this guy's grave, but ultimately, do we really expect anything good out of him against the Broncos? I expect this to kind of be a lower scoring performance from the Raiders. The Raiders' offense has been fucking putrid all year long. I understand why in a deeper league you might have to start him, but in a lot of scenarios, I've told people to just cut Derek Carr. So the numbers he's put up this year have been bad. I don't know if it's all his fault. It's also McDaniel's fault, but it's just a recipe for disaster. Next up, we move to Gerald Everett of the LA Chargers going up against the Kansas City Chiefs at home in LA. Gerald Everett last week up against the Niners in San Francisco, tight end 26.5 PPR, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 23 yards. He has had 5 straight games of under 10.5 PPR points. I know that the Chiefs defense is kind of sneaky, not the best, ranking 22nd against the pass in pass DVOA. But with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen coming back, this is one of those scenarios where there is just too many cooks in the kitchen. And with Gerald Everett being banged up going into this game, this seems like a scenario where you need to be sitting Gerald Everett. Final player to discuss here, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the San Francisco 49ers in Mexico City. Week 10 at LA Rams, tight end 41.5 PPR, 1 reception on 1 target for 7 yards. Without Zach Ertz, we should see Trey McBride, I just said Trey McBride, get volume, but Hollywood Brown probably going to come back and ruin that. Kyler also banged up. Kyler might not play. We might get Colt McCoy. Another scenario where this is a recipe for disaster. I think McBride is a good stash, but I do not want to be playing him this week up against a stout Niners defense. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. If you want to take advantage of that offer, again, DraftKings Sportsbook, link in the video description and in the pinned comment. Bet $5 on any pregame money line. Win $200 in free bets if your bet wins. Love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great guys' day. And as always, good boy.